What's up, dudes and dudes in the internet? My name's Scyushi and we are back as more Trove, and we're chilling on the test server. So we're gonna have a couple things that we're gonna be talking about today. Namely, there is the new skill tree. Yeah, you heard me. You'll see it in a little bit. It's pretty terrifying. And more importantly, there's going to end up being the Mystic Gear, because they actually ended up throwing us a whole bunch of the newer resources on the test server, specifically so that we could test stuff out. Now, just before we end up doing that, for the sake of continuity, we're going to end up heading into U15, aka U12, and we're going to end up fighting some enemies, just so I can show you guys how spongy they are, and we're going to end up seeing like what's the big difference between C5 gear and Mystic gear. Is it going to end up making that much of a difference? And then on top of that, I also really wanted to see whether or not we had the new crafting components. Basically in U15, there's these new ships that can show up, and apparently, okay, so these are supposed to have like a bunch of different resources that we can craft. At least it mentions that in the patch notes, but I haven't seen them in this crafting table. And a lot of the resources that they ended up actually giving us, if we go to our currency, you can see we've got like Abyss Essence, Pyric Essence, and all of these other things, right? And it does actually go into our currency inventory rather than going into our normal inventory. Granted, all of these resources are technically out of the allies, so maybe you can't craft these. Maybe it's just resources found from the allies and stuff. So here's a normal dungeon boss, which, my God, you can see how powerful he is. This is me without using Death Defying or anything like that. So huge damage difference between U11 and U12. Just for those of you that don't know, we're calling it U15 because the game, for whatever reason, renamed all the difficulties, and Uber is no longer a thing. So U14, or Deep Fallow 14, was U11, whereas Long Shade 15, or as we're calling it, U15, is the new highest difficulty, which would technically be U12. So I'm just saying, like, for those of you that are on console or just out of the loop that are like, oh my God, we're actually going like from U11 all the way to 15. No, it's just kind of a technicality because they renamed everything. But if I end up using a flask, you can see I deal a little bit more damage. The thing that I'm very worried about with this update is because these enemies are so spongy, and because the Shadow Hunter doesn't shoot through them when you have his class gem ability, it means that more than likely, when this update ends up going to the live server, I will probably have to swap off of Shadowhunter for, say, Boomeranger or Solarian, just so that I can clear dungeons at a more optimal rate, right? But with all of that said, yeah, the damage that we're doing is, what is that? 3.75 mil, 3.9. Let's say it's a 3.5 to 5 mil per shot. So here's going to be where my stats are at right now, just so you guys know. And oddly enough, I noticed that if we look at this, so we can upgrade from Crystal 5 into Mystic, it doesn't show any stats difference. I'm certain there is a difference. It's just, it's not actually showing it properly. So I might have to like get a freeze frame of this, but here we go. Oh dear Lord. So it does go into Mystic, and the patch notes called it Mystic 1. The game does not, which means it's only a matter of time before it probably gets called, you know, up to Mystic 5. I don't know if we're gonna have enough resources to max out a full set. Oh, really? So, ew, that's stupid. So from C5 to Mystic, it doesn't change stats. It just upgrades it into the next tier of gear. That's terrible, because that was a considerable amount of resources. Well, namely the depth cores. But now we can actually see what the stats are going to end up being like. Also, I wanted to show you guys. Okay, I have a mod on that I guess I'm gonna have to change here. There we go. Yeah, so that's what the that's what it looks like. Pretty cool, honestly. Looks pretty pretty iconic in comparison to the rest of the gear in the game. It actually has like a unique background and stuff. So that's pretty neat. Let's see if we can max this out. It's increasing my light a lot, physical damage by a decent amount. Doesn't say, like, visually it doesn't reflect that it's getting more crit damage, but I don't know if that's even a real thing. A little bit more magic find, who cares? Good Lord, these resources are insane. Yeah, okay, there's a lot of visual glitches with this, but I mean, we get more movement speed, so that's kind of nice. God, the crafting resources. Well, if we're gonna max out anything, it's gotta be the weapon, right? Gotta be the weapon. 100%. Okay, so we got a pretty decent amount more light, like 1 extra movement speed. Who cares, honestly, at this point? And yeah, otherwise, that is a fully maxed out Mystic bow. I like that they don't call it Mystic 1 in game yet. It tells me that this is going to be an update that they expect to last. And as we'll talk about with the Runic table or the new skill tree, yeah, they definitely plan on this update lasting a very long time. The problem is devs didn't seem to give us enough resources to max out all of our gear, because you can see the depth cores I'm severely lacking. These other resources we actually got a decent amount of, but the depth cores in particular, I'm not going to have enough. I can at least get all of my gear up into Mystic. But yikes. Okay, let's see if I can get the movement speed on each of these. Yeah, that's all I can do. So at the very least, I got 3 more movement speed, you guys. Oh my God. I'm a little bit curious why the devs didn't end up actually giving us enough resources to test this out. But we are sitting at 48K. So that's pretty crazy. This has got 2324 versus, okay, 3, let's say that goes to 36. So we'll hit 49K. Cool. I think one of you guys already mentioned that in a stream, that we don't actually get to 50 KPR. Maybe some freak like at the absolute end game with all the mastery would possibly be able to hit it. I'm not sure. So here's our stat difference. Sorry, my face cam's a little bit in the way now that we're using the different UI. Yeah, movement speed is a little bit better, but it's not that big of a deal. Okay, let's see how much damage we're doing just by having the Mystic gear in the end game world, and then we'll go and check out that new Runic table, I suppose. So on a normal enemy, I am now doing 4 mil to 5.7. There we go. Okay, this guy might be defensive or something, because yeah, it's not the same numbers. I did see 5.7. This is without flash, by the way. So I'm averaging about like, that went up to 6 mil. So we're definitely stronger. Maybe like, let's give or take, say that we're doing like 1 mil more damage minimum. I guess, I don't know. But let's see on a normal enemy. Yeah, we kind of melt them a little bit better, that's for sure. It's more reasonable, I'll say that. And then if I use a flask, yeah, much better. Granted, again, this is just normal enemies, so it's not as big of a deal. Let's see on an elite. Yeah, 5.7 mil. Damage is okay, but the main thing that I'm concerned about is the resources that I just spent on that. Like to get that maxed out one weapon, and then I didn't even get enough to max out the face and hat. Like that's actually really scary, because the amount of resources that we just spent was probably like, I'm gonna say like maybe a couple weeks worth of like just solid grinding of the end game area. So that's scary, dude. I guess at least it gives us something to work towards, but in kind of the worst way possible. Okay, let me take a quick peek at this rune table. Looks like we might not be able to even upgrade anything out of this though. Okay, it's different resources. So I'm gonna summarize this, and then we'll maybe save this for another time, just because I noticed that that took a little bit longer than I expected. Basically, this is gonna end up giving us various passives and stuff. And I mean, frankly speaking, this could be a video in its own right. So I'll probably save this for that. I'm sorry to bait you guys along, but it seems like we do have a different resource set. Okay, some of these resources are going to end up, yeah, so we're not gonna have enough depth cores to max any of this out for sure. But the one thing that a lot of people have been saying at the end game is they calculated like how long it would take to get a lot of these resources, because a lot of them are very time gated. And I think it was something like 2 years. No surprise, dragon coins are kind of the same when you try to calculate how many dragons you need. But anyways, That's gonna do it from me, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for watching. Smash the like, sub for more, buy the merch you want to support the channel. Video on the top right, one that YouTube recommends for you guys, or you can check out my most recent upload right here. And sound off in the comments what you guys think about all of this, because I don't even know anymore.